various construction companies. And being in the construction business, that means you travel from place to place. So there's not like a fixed office that you go to. I work in construction site, so so you can not really buy a house near to where you work, because your project might change after 1 year or 2 years. So when I start working and save enough money, then we were planning to buy a house. So we were kind of shopping around to see. At that time, I live in downtown Toronto, and we were looking at houses in northeastern part of Scarborough, and we also look at houses in Mississauga and Brampton, and we decided Brampton is offered the best deal for the same price. And because I don't really have care about what location, because I always have to commute to construction site anyway. So the price was the only factor. And also my wife was working in an accounting firm. And often she has to go to the various companies to do audits. So again, for her, there's no fixed office location. So we eventually moved to purchase a house in Brampton in 1980, after 8 years in Canada. And that is the reason is because the house was cheaper there. And about my impression of Brampton is I just noticed is a place, a city is small with lots of open space, and it's a very quiet and peaceful city, and we like it. Yeah. I would say that the moment would be when I become the pastor of my own church. So when I first came to Brampton, I was not a Christian. That was in 1980, and that is also why I chose Brampton, because at that time I don't care about whether there's any church or Chinese church around. And after I moved to Brampton, I become a Christian, and I continued to go back to Toronto to my mother church in Toronto, and that was a long drive. So after a while, it becomes God have arranged an opportunity for a group of Christians to meet in my house as a Bible study. So that group later on become the pioneers for our church, Brampton Chinese Baptist Church. So later on, we have a church established in Brampton. And later on, in 1997, I become the pastor of this church that was started in my house. So as a new Christian, I was very privileged, blessed that acquire this faith, Christianity, and also witness firsthand how a church was started, actually in my home, in my house. After I graduated from university, I worked with a construction site for, I would say, around maybe 13 years. Building office towers for general contractors. And so it's all in the southern Ontario. Some of the projects is like atrium on Bay, and, at the Bay and Dundas. And our company built one as a pollution control center in Barrie. So I worked in various places in Ontario. And in the late 1980s, I decided to form my own construction company. And shortly after that, the construction industry in Ontario took a nosedive. And suddenly I find that I have a lot of free time. So, but at that time I was, God gave me this crisis in my time, in my life. And when I look back, it is His provision for me to call me to switch career. And I entered into Bible seminary, and later on trained and become a church minister, and become a pastor of a church.
So, are there any similarities between being in the construction business and being a pastor?
I think the contrast is much bigger than the similarity, because for construction work, you are dealing with projects, buildings, and you can finish a project in 2 years or 3 years. But for pastor, you are dealing with people, and for people, you never get finished. It's always, it's a lifelong caring. I enjoy doing construction work because I can see the start and the end. So you have a sense of achievement. But pastoring and nurturing people's spiritual life sometimes can be very frustrating. And so, but I felt this is what God called me. So, and I consider it's also a privilege that I can be involved in changing people's life by being a pastor. The church was started in my house, and at that time there would be about maybe 10 people there. And then gradually it grew to around 20, which is becoming too big for my house anymore. And so through our mother church in East Toronto, we contact some of the Baptist church in the local area. So we contacted the First Baptist Church in Brampton, and they were very gracious and generous to let us use their building facility in the afternoon on Sunday. So we have our Sunday worship there for a few years, and our congregation gradually grew to about 50, 60 people. In 1989, we moved to our new location in North Park Drive. So, and our church has been meeting there ever since. Our church right now have about 250 people, adults and children all together. And we have 2 services, English service and also the Chinese services. So our long-term goal would be to worship there, to serve the community, to preach the gospel, and also to plant another church in the west side of Brampton. Right now we are in the northeastern part of Brampton, and we think that the population increase, and we can probably plant another church on the west side. Well, from a functional point of view, some of my frequent places would be Tim Horton, and for groceries, I usually go to there's a Kennedy Mall at Kennedy and Clarence. So then shopping would be Shoppers World. But for places that I enjoy, other than out of necessities, would be Gage Park, where at that time it was even before they have the skating path. So they took the kids to do for park and also for skating there. Another place I really enjoy is the apple orchard on Heritage Road, the Alfari Apple Farm. There was on Heritage Road on the west side of Brampton. So in the autumn times, sometimes took the kids to pick apples and then strawberry in the summer. Well, if you call eating rice the tradition, I think as Chinese, our eating habits is still very Chinese. Sometimes that irritates my kids at their young age. They always complain, why can't we just eat bread instead of rice or eat French fries? But I always reply, because we are Chinese, we always eat rice. And other than the food habit, we observe many festivals we don't observe too much. The one that we generally observe would be the Chinese New Year, which takes place usually in either late January or February. So in that sense, we are quite fortunate to have, as Chinese people, we have both the Western New Year and also the Chinese New Year. And we celebrate Chinese New Year, usually give out the lucky envelope, and also have family, an occasion for family to gather together for meals and sharings, like that. So we treasure that. But other Chinese festivals,